You ever had a neighbor who just wouldn't take the hint? Yeah, that's where this story starts. I live in a quiet neighborhood where everyone mostly keeps to themselves, but there's always that *1 person who has to make things difficult. In my case, it was a woman on the HOA board. We'll just call her Karen. For some reason, she decided my driveway was her personal parking spot. Not once, not twice. We're talking repeatedly and every time she'd act like it was no big deal, brushing me off with that smug HOA authority vibe. At first, I tried being nice. I left polite notes, even talked to her directly. Her response: "I'm allowed to park wherever I want in this neighborhood." That's when I knew this was more than just a misunderstanding. It was a power play. She was doing it on purpose. I mean, who parks in someone else's private driveway like it's a public lot? So after weeks of back and forth, I decided to get a little creative. Nothing illegal, nothing destructive, just a small, solid message she couldn't ignore. Let's just say it involved a few heavy cinder blocks and some very careful placement. What happened next? Oh, it turned the whole neighborhood into a drama-filled spectacle, and Karen, she did take it well. So, here's some background so you really get why this whole thing got under my skin. I've lived in this house for about 6 years. Quiet street, great neighbors, until Karen moved in 2 doors down. She joined the HOA almost immediately and started acting like she ran the entire block. You know the type, always sending out little notices, measuring lawns, snapping photos of people's trash bins. It was annoying, but I figured, hey, live and let live. But then she started parking in my driveway. The first time, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she had a guest over, maybe it was a mistake, but then it happened again, and again. No note, no asking. Just her car, sitting there like she owned the place. When I finally brought it up, she laughed and told me I didn't own the street. That's when I realized this wasn't just lazy parking, this was a control thing. I checked the HOA rules just to be sure, and guess what? Parking in someone else's private driveway is not allowed. But Karen? She said as a board member, she had certain flexibilities. Whatever that means. Even when I reported it to the HOA, nothing happened. It was like the rules didn't apply to her. That's when I knew I had to handle this a different way. It started to feel like a game to her. Almost every other day, I'd come home from work and there her SUV would be, right in my driveway like it was reserved. Sometimes she'd leave it there for hours, other times overnight. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, photos, just in case I needed proof. But that only made me more frustrated, because even with all that, no one from the HOA would step in. Turns out, Karen had a few friends on the board, and they weren't exactly in a rush to hold her accountable. Some of my neighbors noticed what was going on. One of them, Jake, who lives across the street, told me he once caught Karen moving his garbage bins because they were too close to the sidewalk. Another neighbor, Linda, shared that Karen had tried to fine her for having a bird feeder. So apparently it wasn't just me. This lady was on a full control spree. But even knowing that didn't help. Every time I tried to talk to her calmly, she'd turn it into a lecture about community standards. It was like reasoning with a brick wall. And yeah, I get it. HOAs can be strict. But this wasn't about rules anymore. This was personal. The driveway thing. That was just her way of reminding me she could do what she wanted. And I was done being quiet about it. One morning, I stepped outside to head to work, and yep, there she was again. Her SUV parked right in the middle of my driveway like she owned it. But this time, I had somewhere important to be, and she was nowhere in sight. I rang her doorbell, called her phone, even knocked on the windows. Nothing. That was the last straw. I was tired of feeling like a guest on my own property. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking, what's it gonna take for her to stop? Talking hadn't worked. Reporting her hadn't worked. I needed a way to get the message across, clearly, calmly, but in a way she couldn't brush off. And that's when the idea hit me. Simple, legal, unmissable. I grabbed 4 heavy cinder blocks from my garage, left over from a backyard project, and set them in just the right spots. Not touching her car, not damaging anything, just boxed in front and back, neatly, quietly, and then I went inside and waited. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking, what's it gonna take for her to stop? Talking hadn't worked. Reporting her hadn't worked. I needed a way to get the message across, clearly, calmly, but in a way she couldn't brush off. And that's when the idea hit me. Simple, legal, unmissable. I grabbed 4 heavy cinder blocks from my garage, left over from a backyard project, and set them in just the right spots. Not touching her car, not damaging anything, just boxed in front and back, neatly, quietly, and then I went inside and waited. Around mid-morning the next day, I heard it. Slamming doors, raised voices. Karen was outside, pacing around her car, phone in hand, clearly furious. I watched from the window as she called someone, maybe the HOA, maybe a tow truck, maybe the police. And as the minutes ticked by, the whole block started to notice. People peeked out from curtains, some even came outside. The drama was unfolding, and it was just getting started. Karen was furious, pacing around her trapped SUV like a storm about to break loose. I stayed inside, sipping coffee, watching the chaos unfold through the blinds. But just when I thought things couldn't get any more intense, the real twist came. About 20 minutes later, a white sedan pulled up. It was another HOA board member, Mark, who I hadn't seen in weeks. He got out, walked straight to Karen, and they started arguing. Loudly, not about me, not about the car, but about her using HOA authority for personal grudges. Turns out, Mark wasn't on Karen's side after all. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "You've gone too far, Karen. This isn't what the HOA is for," he said. She waved her phone at him, clearly upset, but he wasn't backing down. More neighbors had gathered by then, pretending to water plants or walk dogs, but really just watching it all unfold. The tension was unreal. And then Karen did something no one expected. She pulled out a clipboard, the kind she always carries around, and started jotting things down. Mark looked stunned. "You're writing me up now," he said, half laughing, half in disbelief. That's when I realized this wasn't just about my driveway. This was something deeper. Karen was losing her grip on the power she thought she had, and she was about to fight harder than ever to keep it. The yelling between Karen and Mark kept getting louder, and by now half the block was standing outside, pretending to do yard work just to watch. I finally stepped out, not to escalate anything, but because I figured if things were going down, I might as well be present. Karen turned to me the second she saw me, waving her clipboard like it was some kind of weapon. "This is harassment," she shouted. "You're blocking my car. This is a violation of HOA rules." Before I could even answer, Mark stepped in. "Actually, Karen, you're the one in violation," he said, pulling out his own stack of papers, copies of complaints from other neighbors, including mine. He'd apparently been collecting them for weeks. Turns out I wasn't the only one keeping records. What really caught her off guard, though, was that several neighbors had signed a petition to formally remove her from the HOA board. And the kicker: Mark had scheduled a vote for that very evening. Karen went silent. For the first time, she looked actually unsure. She muttered something and stormed off into her house, leaving her SUV still blocked in by the cinder blocks. A few hours later, I saw a tow truck arrive, not for her car, but one she had called to try and make a point. But the driver took one look, shook his head, and left. Apparently, you can't tow a car from someone else's private driveway without permission. Karen went silent. For the first time, she looked actually unsure. She muttered something and stormed off into her house, leaving her SUV still blocked in by the cinder blocks. A few hours later, I saw a tow truck arrive, not for her car, but one asterisk she asterisk had called to try and make a point. But the driver took one look, shook his head, and left. Apparently, you can't tow a car from someone else's private driveway without permission. That night, at the emergency HOA meeting, the vote was nearly unanimous. Karen was officially out, but here's the twist. The next morning, she rang my doorbell. No clipboard, no attitude, just a quiet, "I'll be moving next month." And then she handed me a gift bag. Inside, a coffee mug that said asterisk world's best neighbor asterisk. Still not sure if it was sarcasm or surrender. But either way, the driveway was finally mine again. After everything that went down, things finally felt normal again. The driveway stayed clear, the neighborhood felt calmer, and honestly, I could breathe a little easier. Karen kept to herself during her final weeks, barely making eye contact, and the once daily HOA emails. They stopped completely. The new board, led by Mark, actually started listening to people, real change, not just power plays. Even Jake and Linda said they felt like the street had a new vibe, less tense, more neighborly. As for that coffee mug Karen gave me, I still don't know what to make of it. It's sitting on a shelf in the garage, not out of spite, just as a reminder. Sometimes standing your ground, even in small ways, sends the message people need to hear. I didn't use anger. I didn't break rules. I just took a stand with a few cinder blocks and a whole lot of patience. So if you're dealing with an HOA conflict, difficult neighbor, or someone testing your boundaries, document everything, stay calm, and remember, you don't need to shout to make noise. Sometimes, quiet actions speak the loudest, and in the end, respect goes a long way, especially when it starts right in your own driveway.